I've often talked about Milton Friedman, and I cite him in my books, and with respect to immigration, he made the point that if you have a welfare state, you can't have open borders. You can't have immigration of this kind. And so I did a little digging today, and I found the audio. I can't play it all. It's several minutes long, maybe 7 or 8 minutes long. But I have the relevant section, and I want you to listen to this. This was during his promotion of his book, Free to Choose, and the PBS special on it, which was an amazing special, a great series. I watched it as a young man, had an enormous influence on me. So I'd like you to listen to Milton Friedman on immigration, because sometimes you hear people go on about how, immigration, we've always had open borders, we've always had immigration. Even Friedman says it up to 1914. That's not historically accurate, but that's not my point. Cut 9. Go.
I have always been amused by kind of a paradox. Suppose you go around and ask people. The United States, as you know, before 1914 had completely free immigration. Anybody could get on a boat and come to these shores, and if he landed on Ellis Island, he was an immigrant. Was that a good thing or a bad thing? You will find hardly a soul who will say it was a bad thing. Almost everybody will say it was a good thing. But then I suppose I say to the same people, but now what about today? Do you think we should have free immigration? Oh, no, they'll say, we couldn't possibly have free immigration today. Why, that would flood us with immigrants from India and God knows where. We'd be driven down to a bare subsistence level. What's the difference? How can people be so inconsistent? Why is it that free immigration was a good thing before 1914 and free immigration is a bad thing today? Well, there's a sense in which that answer is right. There's a sense in which free immigration, in the same sense as we had it before 1914, is not possible today. Why not? Because it is one thing to have free immigration to jobs. It is another thing to have free immigration to welfare. And you cannot have both. If you have a welfare state, if you have a state in which every resident is promised certain minimum level of income or a minimum level of subsistence, regardless of whether he works or not, produces it or not, well, then it really is an impossible thing.
See, ladies and gentlemen, I'm playing this for you because you don't hear voices like this anymore. Instead, you have pretenders and phonies who go on and on and on about people in the shadows and that this is good for the economy and people come here for love. And Milton Friedman, a rational libertarian, an Austrian economist, very close to Hayek and Mises, among others, a very rational man. And I also read where he said, look, if we lived in a libertarian society, I believe in open borders and free immigration. I believe in the free movement of people to jobs, to industry, for trade, for commerce, and so forth. But when you have a powerful centralized welfare state, you can't have that because you will destroy a society. And yet that's what we have, a powerful centralized welfare state. More so than we have a capitalist system. And yet you have people on TV and radio talking about the economic benefits of unskilled and no-skilled foreigners coming into this country, infants coming into this country, pregnant women coming into this country who can't speak their language, let alone our language, who have no chance of getting jobs right now, who are being offered in-state tuition in many cases, who are being offered driver's license, who are being offered all kinds of benefits by leftists in blue states, by more and more Republicans, by the federal government and so forth. And so this is a huge problem from an economics point of view. And it drains the resources out of these border states and now more and more states that aren't on the border because people are moving into the center of the country and being moved into the center of the country. It has an incredibly negative effect on local school systems and local hospitals and law enforcement. Nobody knows who's coming in here, why they're coming here. And you can't just assume everybody's an angel, because everyone's not an angel, even those of us who are born in this country. It is a huge problem for our prison system. We can't keep track of people, and more people are coming here with these exotic diseases, many of which we wiped out in this country, decades and decades ago. This is just utterly irresponsible. And anybody who supports this and rejects the notion of a secure border is really usurping, undermining this nation. Because it's completely irrational and it's utterly political. Utterly political. And it's more than that. I was the first on national radio to play an audio by former liberal Democrat governor of Colorado, Dick Lamm. And that's not because I'm so great. It's because one of my partners and sponsors on this program, FAIR, had access to it and provided it to me and allowed me to be the first to play it. And in this remarkable audio from October 18, 2003, Lamm says, if I want to destroy this country, I have a plan to destroy this country. Massive immigration. Illegal immigration. Let's listen to what he said. Cut one, go.
I would like to share with you my plan to destroy America. If you think, and some do, that America is too smug, too rich, too self-satisfied, not diverse enough, too white bread, I have this plan. Toynbee, said that all great nations rise and they all fall. And he said, and the autopsy of history is all great nations commit suicide. So here's my plan, 8 parts. Number 1, I'd make it a bilingual, bicultural country. History shows us that no bilingual, bicultural country lives at peace with itself. There's not one, I believe, that doesn't exist with an incredible amount of tension and conflict, if not civil war. My second part of my plan would be to invent something called multiculturalism. This would be 2 parts. Number 1, I would say that all cultures are created equal. It would make no difference and make it impossible to talk about such things as culture. And the second one is that I would really try very hard to make people continue their cultural identity. I would replace the melting pot with the salad bowl. My third part of my plan would be to make the fastest growing demographic group in that country the least educated. I would add a second underclass to the first underclass, unassimilated, undereducated, antagonistic, and then I'd have 50% of them drop out of school, not graduate from high school. The fourth part of my plan would be to get the big foundations to fund, and big business to fund these efforts with lots of money. I would invest in ethnic identity and victimology. I would get them to think about their lack of success was only the fault of the majority. I would start a grievance industry. The fifth part of my plan is I would develop dual citizenship. I would promise people actually divided loyalties, allow them to vote for both Vicente Fox and George Bush. The sixth part, and this is important, I would place all of these subjects off limits. I would make it taboo to talk about, actually, or criticize this whole thing. I would make it come up with a word like heretic used to be 200 years ago. Let's say we'd call it racist. And I would try to accuse anybody of this that would object to my ideas. My seventh part, then, I would make it impossible to enforce our immigration laws. I would develop a mantra, let's call it this, that because immigration has been good in the past for America, it will continue to be good in the future. My eighth and last part, and it's important, is I would censor this book. This man is dangerous. He's on to my plan.
Victor Davis Hanson.
Don't read this book.
His book, Mexiphonia. You've heard these two voices. Disparate voices politically, philosophically. A Nobel winner in economics, the great Milton Friedman, a libertarian, say, no way. You simply can't have this kind of immigration system with this massive welfare state. You will destroy the country. And Richard Lamm, the former liberal Democrat governor of Colorado, who said, you're going to destroy this country. You're going to break it into little pieces. Because his 8-point plan really is a plan for dissolution, for disuniting America. That happens to be the title of the book of Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr. that I've mentioned to you several times before, The Disuniting of America. Reflections on a Multicultural Society. He was a big-time liberal. Advised Adlai Stevenson, advised John F. Kennedy. Now look what's going on the southern border. Our government refuses to secure the border. Tens of thousands of illegal aliens of all ages, backgrounds, God knows what, coming into this country. They're not going to go back, for the most part, being sent here by their governments. And there's not a damn thing we're seriously doing about it. And this is going on year after year after year after year. To hell with assimilation, to hell with what the people want, to hell with the rule of law. It is completely and utterly out of control. It's anarchy.